Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options in Play video update. Hope you all are having a fantastic day. I actually tend to get a lot of questions about call flies, or just option flies in general, right? Put flies or call flies. Um, and they're a slightly more complex option strategy, right? So calls and puts most basic, and then things kind of built from there. And they got spreads and all sorts of different spreads actually, and then flies, and then strangles, straddles, condors, so on and so forth, right? But I end up getting a lot of questions about flies, and Etsy I'm going to talk about. It's I say love hate relationship, and I mean it's hot and cold on a day to day basis right now, just with the way the trade's going. So let me talk through the idea going in, and then we'll talk about the trade, and then kind of break it down a little bit further, right? So Etsy, right? This has been a pretty good trading stock over the last few months. We were in it last quarter, so back in November. Had a really nice move, rolled over, reevaluated, got back in for another trade, ran up, closed it out, came back down, got back in for another trade. So it really moved well. We had a good feel for it. So coming into the week, it was obviously on my radar just for the fact that it moved pretty well on last couple quarters. So I knew it was going to be a mover. But next to that, right, it was in like this really nice little technical like pennant, just flagging underneath it's high, right? So stock had hung in very, very well overall. It's coming off a couple really nice quarters, right? The stock is in like a nice technical setup just underneath its 52-week high. It seems with the holiday quarter coming up, right? The important holiday quarter, it's got a ton of fundamental momentum. It's got some good technical momentum. It seems if they can deliver, there should be a breakout, right? So then I look at the options. What are they pricing in about? It was about 8.5. So it was more on the top of what it tends to move. So it has exceeded 10 points previously, but 8.5 is more along, like the high end. And with a stock like this, expectations are a little bit higher. So it seemed that if you, I wanted to be bullish, but the way to do it would have to be some sort of strategy where you lower the debit, right? So some way to get like the debit lower. So this case, I went with the call fly, and basically the way I structured it was using kind of like a 10% measured move. So that's what you've heard me talk about, the 10% measured move targets a lot. So a 10% measured move through like the top of like 58, 59 resistance puts you where, right? Right about 65, give or take, nothing's exact. It's about, average. So through 58, 59 measured move puts you right around 65. So the call fly was structured with the lower end at 60, the top end at 70, and then the midpoints, right? So like the two short midpoints were at 65 because the 65 was basically the measure move target. So what happens, right? Etsy really crushed it, right? And what's happened now over the last couple of days is that the stock has just zoomed higher, and this is where I get into like the love hate. So the way flies work is that what you're ideally looking for is a smaller move than what they're anticipating, and the stock to kind of consolidate, right? To see like the implied volatility start to contract, because like that's the way you capitalize on flies. You need to see it basically. You need to see like consolidation, implied volatility contraction, because those two short legs of the fly need to see the premium start to deteriorate. And now what's happened is that because it's now traded up through the top, it's kind of like a weird scenario where it's a stock coming into the week I was bullish on, but now I want it to go down because it basically needs to break back below 70 to get the strategy back into like the range, right? So like the top end is 70, and the further it goes, it basically negates the call fly. So again, the love-hate relationship where, I really like the setup, but because of the design of the strategy, now I actually want it to come back down, and I need it to settle back into like the mid 60s. That would be like the ideal range for it to kind of get back into. So this is like the thing with flies, right? It's they're nice ideas, they're nice strategies because they help you really lower debit, so like the upfront net debit. The problem is that you kind of have to nail the window of the trade, right? So if something has like a very large move and blows through like the top, or if you're doing put flies and a very big move down, it blows through the bottom, then you basically kind of like negates it. Whereas if I had just done like a regular call spread here, it probably would have been through the top of it, and it's being getting closer to being maxed out. Versus now the call fly, it's through the top of it, and it's getting close to being completely negated. So it's just it's one of these strategies that it's just it's nice because you like to open the playbook, try different things, right? And we've had some success with flies just recently, right? So it's just in this scenario, it's gone a little bit too far, and now I'm watching for retracement. There's 2 weeks left on these, so I have to be keeping a pretty close eye on it. But in the terms of what Etsy's done in the past, you can see, I mean, pop and then roll over, right? Right. So this was actually in the June Investor Day. So this was earnings. So a big pop, pulled back, big run, pulled back. So it wouldn't be unusual to see a pullback. So that's what I'll be watching. All right. So I wanted to talk about flies because I get a lot of questions about it, and I like the way I like the strategies, but there's also drawbacks. So there's positives and negatives. So it's always worth highlighting both. All right. So love to hear what you guys think. Questions or comments, pass them along. Also, I'm going to start prepping for our upcoming option session on Monday. So if you have anything you guys would like to discuss or you want me to go over more in depth, now's a great time to reach out. So I hope you guys have a fantastic night, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow.